question of this week is, why would Fox News fire its most popular host, Tucker Carlson, out of nowhere? It just doesn't make any sense. But I think we know the answer to that. Let me explain. So the Wall Street Journal did this video on why they believe Tucker Carlson was fired from Fox News. Now, interestingly enough, the Wall Street Journal is owned by Rupert Murdoch's News Corp. So this essentially is Fox News' version of why they fired Tucker Carlson, but they're telling it in its alleged neutral way under the umbrella of the Wall Street Journal. But it's owned by Rupert Murdoch, so we know this is coming from the horse's mouth. All right, so let's react to the video and see what facts they're going to present to us to tell us why Tucker Carlson was fired. Now remember, this is from the Wall Street Journal. This is their video, and they're telling us why Fox News, their parent company, allegedly let Tucker go. Let's listen to it.
Offensive messages Tucker Carlson sent showing contempt for Fox News management and colleagues were a major factor in the company's decision to oust him Monday, according to people familiar with the matter. The move took Carlson off the air, a shock to the host and his large audience, making the previous Friday's show his last.
And we'll be back on Monday. In the meantime, have the best weekend with the ones that you love, and we'll see you then.
Culturally, it's a big deal because Tucker Carlson was one of the most well-known TV personalities and the highest-rated primetime host.
Here's a look at the private messages that led to Carlson's surprise ouster. And
now, one thing now is that, remember, these messages aren't new. They're from a while ago, sometimes even 2 years ago. So all of a sudden, they're going to lead to his firing 2 years later. Now, obviously, you have the Dominion lawsuit, which is a problem. But let's hear exactly why the Wall Street Journal, or essentially Fox News, believes that they fired or let go Tucker Carlson.
And what's next to the former host and the network? Ahead of Fox's defamation trial against Dominion voting systems, people familiar with the matter say Fox News lawyers presented Carlson with what they thought was good news. They told him the court would redact from a legal filing the time he called a senior Fox News executive the C word. But Carlson wasn't impressed. He told his colleagues he wanted the world to know what he said about the executive.
Internal messages, many of which...
He's texting someone. Now, one thing about, so if I'm texting someone, I'm like, hey, that person's an a-hole, or that person's this, or that person's that. That means nothing, right? Because you have personal feelings toward people. It's not like he's saying that in the office, you're on this, right? These are private messages. So understand that context to this two people. These are private messages that he's sending. And they're saying, well, we're going to fire you for these private messages. But again, let's continue to hear on what they're saying.
Were from Tucker Carlson to other colleagues were made public in the discovery process, and some of those ended up being redacted, but in them, Mr. Carlson made disparaging remarks about some of his colleagues and other people at the network.
The court filings also revealed an exchange where Carlson called for the firing of a Fox News reporter for fact-checking Donald Trump's false claims about the 2020 election. "Please get her fired," Carlson wrote. "It's measurably hurting the company." In another message, Carlson is shown complaining about the network's news coverage, including its decision to call Arizona for Joe Biden on election night. According to one document, he wrote, "We devote our lives to building an audience, and they let Chris Wallace and Leland Vittert wreck it," and included an obscenity. In the messages, Carlson also made disparaging comments about on-air guests and former President Donald Trump.
All right. So to me, again, this is just me, this seems like a hit campaign to get Tucker. This seems like a hit campaign. And now I'm thinking that's the reason why Tucker released that statement yesterday. Well, yesterday my time. I'm not sure when this video is going to be released. But yesterday Tucker released a statement, and I'm thinking it's because of these type of pieces. So this whole thing almost got 1 million views. But what I'm hearing now is Fox News is saying, hey, the whole Dominion thing was Tucker's fault. Tucker was one of the ones that spreading this fake news, false information. But one thing they're not telling you, one thing they are not telling you, is Tucker was the only host on Fox News to call Sidney Powell out and defend Dominion voting systems. You know, let me step right in real quick and play that clip.
For more than a week, Powell has been all over conservative media with the following story. This election was stolen by a collection of international leftists who manipulated vote tabulating software in order to flip millions of votes from Donald Trump to Joe Biden. The other day on television, Powell said of Trump that when the fraud is finally uncovered, quote, "I think we'll find he had at least 80 million votes." In other words, rigged software stole about 7 million votes in this election. Here's some of what Powell said today about the software.
One of its most characteristic features is its ability to flip votes. It can set and run an algorithm that probably ran all over the country to take a certain percentage of votes from President Trump and flip them to President Biden, which we might never have uncovered had the votes for President Trump not been so overwhelming in so many of these states that it broke the algorithm that had been plugged into the system. And that's what caused them to have to shut down in the states they shut down in.
That was a few hours ago, but Sidney Powell has been saying similar things for days. On Sunday night, we texted her after watching one of her segments. What Powell was describing would amount to the single greatest crime in American history. Millions of votes stolen in a day. Democracy destroyed. The end of our centuries-old system of self-government. Not a small thing. Now, to be perfectly clear, we did not dismiss any of it. We don't dismiss anything anymore, particularly when it's related to technology. We've talked to too many Silicon Valley whistleblowers. We've seen too much. After 4 years, this may be the single most open-minded show on television. We literally do UFO segments, not because we're crazy or had even been interested in the subject, but because there is evidence that UFOs are real and everyone lies about it. There's evidence that a lot of things that responsible people used to dismiss out of hand as ridiculous are in fact real. And we don't care who mocks it. The louder the Yale Political Science Department and the staff of the Atlantic magazine scream, "conspiracy theory," the more interested we tend to be. That's usually a sign you're over the target. A lot of people with impressive sounding credentials in this country are frauds. They have no idea what they're doing. They're children posing as authorities, and when they're caught, they lie and then they blame you for it. We see that every day. It's the central theme of this show and will continue to be. So that's a long way of saying we took Sidney Powell seriously. We had no intention of fighting with her. We've always respected her work. We simply wanted to see the details. How could you not want to see them? So we invited Sidney Powell on the show. We would have given her the whole hour. We would have given her the entire week, actually, and listened quietly the whole time at rapt attention. That's a big story. But she never sent us any evidence, despite a lot of requests, polite requests, not a page. When we kept pressing, she got angry and told us to stop contacting her. When we checked with others around the Trump campaign, people in positions of authority, they told us Powell has never given them any evidence either, nor did she provide any today at the press conference. Powell did say that electronic voting is dangerous, and she's right. We're with her there. But she never demonstrated that a single actual vote was moved illegitimately by software from one candidate to another. Not one. So why are we telling you this? We're telling you this because it's true. And in the end, that's all that matters, the truth. It's our only hope. It's our best defense.
So the only person at Fox News to tell you the truth that the Sidney Powell, Rudy Giuliani stuff was nonsense, that there was no evidence for it, the only person is the one they fired? And now they're saying it was because of the Dominion lawsuit? Things aren't adding up, people. That just doesn't. Now, don't get me wrong. I am no Tucker Carlson fan, right? Because just like Rachel Maddow and Tucker Carlson and all those people, they are all fake news to me. They are all fake news. Like you know what? Always makes me laugh when people say, "Hey, we love Tucker. He's so honest. He's only giving us facts." Well, when Tucker Carlson was sued from another defamation lawsuit a couple of years ago, it was against, who was the woman? It was Karen McDougal. Karen McDougal was suing him for defamation a couple of years ago, and Tucker Carlson and his crew all admitted that, hey, no reasonable person watching Tucker Carlson's show would believe the things that he says on that show are true. Now, some of you may find offense to that, but it's known as the Rachel Maddow defense. So if you're a liberal who likes MSNBC, Rachel Maddow, her show that was on the same time as Tucker's show was, she actually used that same defense too. When she was sued for defamation, she claimed that no reasonable person watching her show would believe the things that they say on that show are true. And when Tucker Carlson was sued for defamation a couple of times, he used that same defense. He said no reasonable person watching his show would believe the things that he's saying are true. So you'll hear a lot of people saying, hey, Tucker's just speaking truth. Well, hey, even if you believe that, that's fine for you. But Tucker says no reasonable person, right? Tucker and the lawyers that were representing him says no reasonable person would believe any of the stuff that we're saying is true. So that's why he was able to say that the woman was committing extortion, and then go to court and say, well, nobody believes that, right? I'm just having fun with this thing. So what? And again, the same thing with Rachel Maddow. She says the same thing. But the issue with this story is that they came in and tried to say that these votes were being switched from Trump to Biden and all this other stuff. And Tucker gave her a platform and said, well, tell me this stuff, and then tried to fact check her, and then did this big segment and said she was full of crap. And then Dominion sued Fox. They sued Fox over those claims. I'm hammering it in. The only host on the network to call out the BS, to say that, hey, this is all BS, was Tucker Carlson. And now Fox is coming out and saying, we're firing him because of the Dominion suit. What? He was the one that was saying, you just settled for $800 million, saying the claims were false. Matter of fact, you're saying the same thing Tucker was saying back. If you would have just went with what Tucker said back then, there would be no settlement, right? Because you would be good. So that's what I'm talking about, people. Something else is going on here. This can't just be about some text messages with Dominion. But again, this is what they're putting out there. And, don't trust me. The receipts are out there. He fact-checked Sidney Powell and Rudy Giuliani in real time, and they're making it seem like he's the reason they lost $800 million. But let's continue. Let's see what else the Wall Street Journal is saying happened.
He wrote in a January 2021 text message that he was very close to being able to ignore Trump most nights, and that I hate him passionately. Although many portions of the Dominion court documents are redacted, there was concern among Fox executives that if the redacted material were to become public, it would lead to further embarrassment for the network and the parent company. And on Monday, the network said it would part ways with the popular host.
Tucker found out about 10 minutes before it was announced by the company.
Fox News Media and Tucker Carlson have mutually agreed to part ways.
So hold on. Before that announcement, they told him 10 minutes before that? Why the rush? Why, hey, we're letting you go right now. And then 10 minutes later, they announce it? We're missing a huge piece of story. And again, this is the Wall Street Journal, owned by the Murdochs. This is what they're putting out to try to explain why they let go of Tucker Carlson. There's something going on here, people. This just doesn't make any sense. From everything that you're seeing now, this doesn't make any sense. And these text messages may look bad, but what does it have to do with anything? Because why not fire Maria Bartiromo? I forget. I don't even know how to say her last name. Why not fire her? They did fire Lou Dobbs. What about Sean Hannity? What about Laura Ingraham? Because they were still pushing the election lies. All these other people kept pushing it. The only person that fact-checked it and said it was bullshit was Tucker. And he's the one that let go. And not just let go, he just kind of rushed out of there. Hey, we're letting you go. And then 10 minutes later, we're announcing it on TV. What? Something's up, people. Again, I'm not a Tucker Carlson fan. I'm not a big Tucker Carlson fan. I'm not a big Rachel Maddow fan. I'm not a fan of any of these people. But we got to call a spade, though. Something that don't make sense. Something don't make sense.
Carlson declined to comment on his departure. Within Fox, people familiar with the matter said reservations had been mounting about risks Carlson presented for the network. Landing blue-chip advertisers for his show was an issue.
Fox struggled with getting advertisers at 8 p.m. on Tucker's show, partially because of controversial remarks he made on a number of different topics.
That's been going on for 3 years. For 3 years, Tucker has not been able to get what's known as blue-chip advertisers. That's your Disney, that's your General Motors. Those are the big companies who pay top dollar to put their ads in front of the most popular shows. So Tucker being the most popular host on TV, the blue chip companies didn't want to advertise on his show. Now, the reason why is because obviously they weren't aligned with his political views, which is fine and okay. But again, they've known that for 3 or 4 years, and Tucker was still on TV every night, right? But now all of a sudden, 3 years later, it's a problem. It literally hasn't been a problem since all the blue chip advertisers left. But as you see, the Wall Street Journal say, "Oh, now it's a huge problem. We can't get advertising dollars." What? This is not like this thing just started yesterday with the advertisers. His show's been doing that's been happening with his show for a multitude of years. But again, that just seems like there's another excuse, right? First is Dominion, first is these text messages, and now we can't get advertisers? Like, again, none of this stuff is adding up. These are good excuses, right? If you didn't know about everything, about the bottom line stuff. And again, this is the Wall Street Journal, owned by Fox Corporation, telling us what they've learned from insiders.
His commentary had grown more extreme and expanded beyond a conservative viewpoint on politics.
Female athletes are losing NCAA championships to men dressing up as women in order to cheat their way to victory.
Hold on. All right, for you conservatives out there, that seems to be like Ben Shapiro says that. Matter of fact, every conservative I know on YouTube says that same thing. So if that's an extreme position, I don't know. But that's what everybody's saying on Fox News. Like how is what he just said different than what most conservatives say on Fox News? I don't see how that's extreme. That's literally what they're saying. You know, biological men shouldn't compete with biological women. That is the whole montage of that whole transgender issue. I don't know. That doesn't seem like it's that radical of an idea when everybody on the network is saying the same thing. Matter of fact, let's listen to all these. Are other people on the network saying some of these similar things that Tucker's saying?
Democrats hate the police because they don't control the police. Very simple. So what is equity? Well, tonight, finally, we know what it is. Equity, it turns out, is racism.
Carlson trafficked in what critics and even some high...
Okay, this is a hit piece, people. None of that sounded crazy to me. All right, is it right wing? Yes. But it's what everybody on the network saying. That could be Tucker Carlson, that could be Laura Ingraham, that could be Sean Hannity, that could be anybody on the network saying that stuff. I just don't get it. They haven't convinced me. Maybe there might be something more here, but they haven't convinced me.
Higher-ups within Fox felt was thinly veiled racism, such as this recent show where he's talking about one of the Tennessee lawmakers protesting for stricter gun control.
Okay. Justin Pearson wasn't white. That's probably how he got into Bowdoin in the first place. But he did a fantastic impression of it. What a nice young man. Has he considered the apprenticeship program at Citibank?
The former host is also...
That was racism? All right, let me go back. I just want to hear... They said this... I just want to hear that part again. They said this is thinly veiled racism. This is one of the reasons why he was fired, right? They're saying that he became racist. This is an example of the racism.
Carlson trafficked in what critics and even some higher-ups within Fox felt was thinly veiled racism, such as this recent show where he's talking about one of the Tennessee lawmakers protesting for stricter gun control.
Justin.
Okay, so the Tennessee lawmakers, remember they had got kicked out, then they had been brought back. There was like a whole big thing about it. So now Tucker is going to give his opinion on this.
Pearson wasn't white. That's probably how he got into Bowdoin in the first place. But he did a fantastic impression of it. What a nice young man. Has he considered the apprenticeship program at Citibank?
The former host is also a defender.
All right, so the fact that he got into this particular school, Tucker said that he probably got in because he wasn't white. That's the thinly veiled racism. I don't know. That's weak. It's just weak. Could it be racism? So essentially they're saying that he's saying because he was black, that's the only reason why he got in. But he said because he wasn't white. Now, for those of you who don't know, the way I'm thinking about this is it even happened to me, right? So when I was going to law school, if you are black, you are given an advantage over white students. So how does it generally work? Because I was black, and there are very few black men who can qualify with both the grades and the test scores to get into law school. There's a very small minority of black men who can qualify to get in law school. So if you do qualify to get in law school, you're very desirable to get into law school. This is not something that is not known. This is, if you go to any law school in the country, they'll tell you this. So for instance, I had an average test score. My test score was above average, but it was essentially, if I was white, it would be a little bit above the average white person. But when it comes putting me against other black people, I had an extremely high score for a black person, because on the tests, blacks and Hispanics score extremely low on the entrance exams, and white students score about what? Well, let me give you the numbers. For black students on the LSAT, the average score for a black student is 142. The average score for a Hispanic student is 138. But the average score for a white person taking the test is like 153. So if you're white, and I think if you're Asian, it's like 155. So me, if I scored a 155, I'm doing better than most white, black, and Hispanic students, but I'm about an average Asian. So what happens is that since there's such few black students who can compete at that level, if you do score 155 like an Asian student, you're really highly desirable, because they're looking for black students who can come in and not only just take a seat, but do the work. So yes, there are advantages to being black and having those test scores. You are more likely to get into those schools. I've been in those rooms. And when we go through all of the applications in the law school I taught in, one of the questions was, how diverse are these applications? Now, what that means is that's code. How diverse are these applications is code to say, how many black people we got here? How many Hispanic people we got here? And if it's not diverse enough, we have to go and figure out how to make it more diverse. Sometimes that meant removing certain students who we say, okay, this student would be a good fit, but that student doesn't make the student body population diverse enough. So we want more diversity. So it's true. And like even with my experience, I'll just be honest with you. I had a friend who happened to be white, and we were applying to law school together. And that white friend had applied to some of the same schools that I did. And when he was applying to some of those schools, I would get scholarships from those schools, and he wouldn't get anything, even though we had very similar LSAT scores. And he used to say, hey, how are you getting these scores? And how are you getting these offers? And I'm not getting it. But he was an average white guy, and he couldn't get into any of these schools because they were like, we have enough white guys. But me, as a black guy, it was like, out of the 100 seats, we only got 5 black guys applying. And out of those 5 black guys, this guy has the numbers that can actually get into the school. So that's what made me desirable. So all these schools were throwing me money to come because they needed black people to make them more diverse. But for him, he wasn't getting those opportunities. So that's kind of what Tucker is alluding to. But that's not racism when it's done for admissions for schools. It's only racism when you call it out. And I think Tucker's calling it out. Now, this is no defense, but I wouldn't call it racism. I would actually call it the reality of what's actually happening. And everything I'm telling you is factually correct, right? Law schools, if you are black or Hispanic and get an average score on the LSAT, you are something like 3 or 5 times more likely to be able to get into law school with money than if you were white. That's just the reality of the situation, people. I don't know what to tell you.
And in a separate lawsuit that was filed last month by Abby Grossberg, a former producer for Carlson.
I was hoping that it would be more professional, and what he was portraying on air was just a show, and unfortunately that wasn't the case.
The Abby Grossberg lawsuit against Fox, and Tucker is also named as a defendant in that suit, describes a culture of misogyny and religious discrimination at the network.
Carlson had no comment on the lawsuit.
Misogyny and religious discrimination over in lawsuits. So these are allegations that come out. Misogyny. So they're saying that this is, so now we have this next big piece of it, right? He's, again, if you see that this is a hit piece trying to destroy this man's career. He's a racist, thinly veiled racist. He's a racist. Now he's a sexist. Now he's unprofessional. Like, you see all these things. Wow. This is just hit after hit after hit. I see why Tucker Carlson's got a lawyer. He's like, what the hell? They just tried to destroy me, right? This is crazy. This is insane. Wow. But this is how it goes when you get higher up.
Fox at the time said it hired independent outside counsel to investigate the concerns raised by Grossberg. Fox and News Corp, the parent company of the Wall Street Journal's publisher, share common ownership. Carlson, now off the air, has declined to comment on his future plans.
Some people have speculated that he might take on a career in politics. Some people have talked about, him launching his own media venture of some sort or joining another network. But he hasn't commented on what he's going to do next.
For Fox News, his ouster leaves a primetime hole. The network is currently relying on a rotation of hosts until it names a permanent anchor for the 8 p.m. slot.
Historically, when anchors have left Fox, the network has survived. There are a number of examples of really prominent people who have left the network and launched their own careers. Megyn Kelly, Bill O'Reilly, Glenn Beck. But Fox, nonetheless, has found talent to replace them.
You see? Fox has found talent to replace them. So what do you think about this hit piece? I think it's very telling. I think it's very telling for two reasons. Number one, they listed a whole bunch of reasons why they allegedly let Tucker go. But a lot of that stuff has been old. A lot of the stuff he's been doing for years, right? Maybe this Abby Grossman lawsuit, maybe they investigated and they found, hey, a lot of the stuff she's talking about may be accurate and they would let him go. But then why let him go in a rush in 10 minutes, right? If you've known about this thing, right? Remember, on Friday, he had closed the show and said, I'll see you Monday. And then by Monday, he learns, hey, we're letting you go. And then they go and make a big news announcement that we're firing him 10 minutes later. And they kind of baggage it up to all of this. Again, my opinion, I know nothing. So I want to go to you guys. And this is my opinion. My opinion is, I think they wanted Tucker gone for a long time. I think they wanted Tucker gone. But Tucker was just too popular. And they were waiting to figure out if there was an angle that they can use to get Tucker out. So they fired Tucker. And then now they put out all of these things. He's racist, this is this, he is sexist. And if you think about it, it's all the same. It's all the talking points, right? Racist, sexist, misogynist, all those same talking points. The ones that Tucker fights against all the time on his show. But it's fascinating. What do you guys think? Do you guys think this was convincing to you, the reason why Fox News fired Tucker Carlson? Or do you think there's something else going on? There's more to this story, but, we may never know. Let me know how you feel in the comment section. My name is Nate the Lawyer, and I'll see you next time. Peace.